Final project, the Abbasid dynasty by Rehan Ghudayd, Abdul Muqsit, and Ibrahim Nawaz.
السلام عليكم.
Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Table
Yeah.
of contents. How the Abbasids took power, who was the founder, the Abbasid capital, how many years they ruled, the main Khulafa and their rule, Abu al-Abbas al-Safah and Harun al-Rashid, the main achievements of the era, expansion and spread of Islam, the main factors of their decline, lessons learned, and finally the maps.
Okay. So, how did the Abbasids take power? So, firstly, the non-Arab Muslims or Mawali, they felt marginalized under Umayyad rule, and they felt like they needed to make a change. So, the Abbasid family, or descendants of Muhammad Uncle al-Abbas, began rallying opposition in secret. Abu Muslim was a skilled revolutionary, and he led a major uprising in Khorasan in 747 CE. And this movement gained widespread support from Shia Muslims and external groups. And the Abbasid framed their cause as a return to true Islamic leadership and justice. The Abbasids framed their cause, and they also capitalized on growing resentment towards Umayyad luxury and corruption, and their forces defeated the Umayyads in many battles, including a battle of the Zab in 750 CE. So the last Umayyad Caliph, Marwan II, was killed while fleeing, and Abu al-Abbas al-Safa was declared the first Abbasid Caliph, marking the start of the new dynasty. The Abbasids relocated the capital of Baghdad, signaling a shift in power and ideology to the Abbasid Empire. So who was the founder? The second caliph of the Abbasid dynasty, Abu Jafar al-Mansur, is widely regarded as the actual founder of the dynasty. Al-Mansur ascended to the throne with the demise of his brother, the first caliph of the Abbasid dynasty, Caliph Abu al-Abbas al-Safa. Al-Mansur built the capital of Baghdad in 762 CE and named it Madinat as-Salam, or the City of Peace. The new capital emerged as a focal point for Islamic world culture, politics, and also economics. Al-Mansur eliminated internal competitors, including Abu Muslim, in order to solidify his reign. His administration aimed at decentralization and bureaucratic competence. This also laid the groundwork for Abbasid stability. Al-Mansur also patronized the translation of scientific and philosophical writings, and he also set the Islamic Golden Age in motion. His reign charted the course of the Abu Sayyidin Empire in Islam, and his memory of his reign is that of an exemplary statesman who created the framework for an enduring dynasty. Here is a picture of the Abbasid capital. And the Abbasid dynasty ruled as caliphs from their capital Baghdad in modern Iraq after taking over authority of the Muslim Empire from the Umayyads in 750 CE. Baghdad was the political and intellectual heart of the Abbasid Empire. It also was the place that held the House of Wisdom, which was a major influential home of knowledge in the Abbasid Empire. And it was founded by Caliph al-Mansur in 762 CE and called Medina as-Salam, City of Peace. So it was strategically located near the Tigris River and major trade routes, and it became a global center of learning, science, and culture during the Islamic Golden Age. It was also bustling with markets, libraries, and majestic architecture, reflecting Abbasid wealth and influence. And Baghdad symbolized unity and sophistication of the Abbasid Caliphate.
The Khulafa and their region. The Abbasid Caliphate ruled the Islamic Empire from 750 to 1258 CE. I'm going to go over the main people and how many years they went. Okay. Al-Safa for 4 years, Al-Mansur for 21 years, Al-Mahdi for 10 years, Al-Hadi for 1 year, Harun al-Rashid for 23 years, Al-Amin 4 years, Al-Ma'mun 20 years, Al-Mutasim 9 years, Al-Wathiq 5 years, and Al-Mutawakkil for 14 years. Who is Abu Abbas al-Safa? Basically, the initial caliph from the Abbasid dynasty was Abu Abbas al-Safa, and he ruled between 750 and 754 CE. He led the revolution that deposed the Umayyads and established Abbasid rule. So he was like the pioneer of the Abbasid Caliphate. Al-Safa attempted to reunite the Muslim Empire following years of conflict and warfare. He solidified allegiance through political weddings and closed off threats against Abbasid rule. And his reign was the foundation for the new era of Baghdad-based rule, which was the Abbasid Caliphate. And he also had a short, but his reign was vigorous and an important part of the Abbasid history. Who was Harun al-Rashid? Harun al-Rashid was the most famous of the Abbasid Caliphate and Abbasid caliphs, and he reigned from 786 to 809 CE. His reign was basically the peak of the Islamic Golden Age, and science, culture, and commerce was rapidly expanding. He patronized artists, scholars, and poets, and he basically turned Baghdad into something like an international center for learning. That's where the House of Wisdom was. His court was famous for being luxurious, sophisticated, and cosmopolitan. The legacy of Harun al-Rashid remains an emblem of prosperity, excellence in culture, and enlightened rule.
So, what are the main achievements of their era? So, firstly, the golden age of Islamic civilization. The Abbasid era marked a flourishing of science, medicine, mathematics, and philosophy and literature. This all came from the House of Wisdom, which was the main source of knowledge, sciences, and just everything you wanted to know about life back in the Abbasid Empire. And the development of intellectual and cultural institutions also was a big major main achievement because scholars from various backgrounds were supported by the caliphs, leading to translation of Greek, Persian, and Indian texts into Arabic and the development of original works. This also led to the expansion of trade and economic prosperity because Baghdad became a global hub for trade, linking the East and West through vast commercial networks that fueled economic growth and cultural exchange. And we shouldn't forget about the advancements in art, architecture, and literature, as the Abbasid architecture showed intricate designs and innovations such as the use of calligraphy and geometric patterns. Arabic poetry and prose also reached new heights in his era.
Expansion and spread of Islam in this era. As we know, the Abbasid Caliphate was one of the most important caliphates in the history of Islam. So, how did they spread Islam? Islam continued to spread under the Abbasid period to areas like Central Asia, sections of India, and the Sub-Saharan Africa territories through missionary activities and trade. It's important to note that Islam was a type of religion that promoted trade, as Prophet ﷺ was a trader himself. So they took advantage of roads like the Silk Road or the Indian exchange to promote their religion. The Abbasids had little interest in military conquest and a greater interest in intellectual and cultural expansion, encouraging conversion through learning, literature, and scholarship. The great cities like Baghdad became seats of learning, attracting scholars from all across the entire Muslim world and ensuring the spread of Islam practices and knowledge. Trade routes flourished during the Abbasid rule, and travelers and traders were able to disseminate Islamic beliefs and practices far beyond just the borders of the empire. Throughout this period, Islam became a world power and established the intellectual and spiritual basis of subsequent Muslim societies, which we know as Dar al-Islam.
So, what was the main factors of their decline? Firstly, we have financial mismanagement. There is a lot of spending on court luxuries and an oversized bureaucracy, and the rising cost of maintaining a vast empire it was really strained the Abbasid treasury, and it's also weakened the economy over time. This economic instability fueled corruption and reduced the government's ability to manage internal and external challenges. There was also military setbacks and external dangers. The Abbasids faced continuous invasions and pressure from rival groups like the Seljuk Turks and later the Mongols, who eventually sacked Baghdad in 1258 with the Great Mongol Empire, which was very influential with containing the Silk Roads. These military defeats crippled the Abbasid military and symbolized the end of the political dominance. Uh, Frequent uprisings, including those by Shia factions, regional governors, and discontented ethnic groups, eroded central authority and fractured the empire. And the weakening of caliphal control over distant provinces led to the rise of semi-independent dynasties and loss of unity.
Lessons learned from the Abbasid dynasty. Now that we went over the Abbasid dynasty and how it unfolded, going over the major spreads of Islam and the caliphs in the Abbasid dynasty, it's important to talk about what we are going to learn from the history. As we know, history repeats itself, and it's important that we take lessons from history. The power of knowledge and culture was a significant theme in the Abbasid Caliphate. The Abbasids ushered in a golden age of science, philosophy, and literature by investing in institutions like House of Wisdom, and supporting scholars from diverse backgrounds. This shows the lasting impact of prioritizing education, intellectual curiosity, and cultural patronage in building a thriving and respected civilization. Another key theme was the dangers of decentralization. As we know, nowadays people try to centralize their power, and we can see from the Abbasid Caliphate what dangers that decentralization has on an area. As regional powers gained autonomy and caliphal authority declined, the empire fragmented and central control weakened significantly. This is what ultimately led to the fall of the Abbasid dynasty. This teaches us that while autonomy is important, it's important to have a central ruler or a central power that keeps every single units in check, or like states or like provinces in check.
Here are some maps of the Abbasid Empire. First one is about the Abbasid Empire in the 9th century. It's color coded and shows the areas that were under direct control of the Abbasids and different regions of it. And here's a second one, the Abbasid Empire in retrospect. So you can view it as a whole and how it evolved and how its influence was spread all over its area. And it's very, very interesting. I like these maps a lot.
جزاك الله خيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاك الله خير.